kind of mass appeal for education. There is a lot of drive towards education. We have a lot of corporation schools and private schools motivating people to take education. So overall, the number is more.
So it means that to define Indian English, do you basically focus on educated people because they are so high in their knowledge, or because they are so big in number? What is the exact reason for definition?
Yeah, good. The reason is that it is about competency. It is not only about number. See, when people, for example, when British English was standardized, they took into account how all these Britishers use a particular pattern. Now, Britishers use a particular pattern. Now, are you also getting echo in between, or only I am getting it? Dr. Kampi?
Also, it echoes sometime.
I don't know. Okay. So in terms of competency, I'll give you an example. When a British grammarian writes a grammar book based on the educated people of London, okay, for example, he might observe that all the educated speakers in UK, they never use, let's say, present perfect tense with past adverb. Present perfect with past adverb. English doesn't allow us to say, I have submitted the report yesterday. That's a wrong sentence in English. What is the correct sentence?
I submitted.
Right. I submitted the report yesterday. Now, where does this rule come from? That you cannot say have submitted and yesterday. It comes from the way people use language, right? So the first thing that we will have to observe is how these competent users of language are using English, whether there is something common in their pattern, what could be called as the common core. So the question is a very good question because it addresses, and actually the answer is both. We need to take into consideration competence, and we also need to take into consideration the number of people who use a particular language. The question was asked by James, right? Yeah. Now, yes, James, for example, if you decide to work or write a paper on how people in Thailand use English, you will agree with me that if you collect samples only from 5 people, that's not enough. That's not going to be a good research paper. So, but if you find, for example, something about the production of sounds of Thai speakers, and if you say that this is a problematic sound, or if you say this word is pronounced by Thai people in this particular way, you will have to have a concrete data where you say that at least thousands of people you have observed in Thailand pronouncing the sound in this particular way. So your examples can come from professors, teachers, students around you because they are educated. Your examples can come from English radio and television programs because that will be a sample of educated English. So wherever you find competency level and also the number, both the things are going to matter a lot. Okay.
Okay. Yes, Professor. Yes, I'm clear for that. Especially
yes,
the focus, yes, between the educated people and non-educated people. And now I got the reason. Yes.
Yeah. And I hope that you start working on this, and next webinar, you will tell me some aspects of Thai English. I'm sure they're there, right? So we need to think about them. All right. Any other question? Okay. Now I'm going to give you certain examples because the title that Dr. Kampi gave me, the 3 keywords for me are global Englishes, which I have covered, pedagogy, which I have covered. The third thing remains, and that is to understand these global Englishes and varieties through examples. Okay. Before that, I just want to say something about attitudes towards Indian English. And, let it be British English, American English, Indian English, Thai English, Myanmar English, whatever it is. let us understand that attitudes contribute a lot in the development of a particular variety. I'm going to ask you all a question. I'll give you half a minute to think, and please write down in your notebook the answer of that. You have to answer just in one word. The question is, label the variety of English that you speak. How would you describe which variety of English do you use? Please write the answer. What would you call it? The kind of variety of English that you all speak. Take 1 minute, think, and write the answer.
Oh.
Okay, Somyong, can you tell me what variety of English do you use?
Yes, Professor. For me, the English that I use in a classroom or in nowadays is the mix between English, British English and American English mixed together. That is, I use in class.
Okay, so Somyong, you are describing your variety of English as a mix, a blend of British and American English. Okay, so that is one answer. Sirap Prabha?
The Thai, the Thai English.
Thai English. Okay, okay. Mary? Yes, Mary, we can't hear you.
Yes, Professor.
Yeah, how would you label your variety of English?
For me, British English.
Okay, British English. All right. Iman?
Yes.
What variety of English do you use?
For me, I also like British English. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Sitisak?
Yes, Professor. I use American English and Tinglish.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Fine. So I think we have different answers. Let me conclude all those different answers. Let me bring them together. Somyong said a blend of British and American English. Mary said British English. Somebody said Thai English. Somebody said a mixture of both. Now, listen carefully to what I'm saying. You know, for example, I think Iman said that she likes British English. Now, liking it is one thing, you know, to be able to articulate and speak the way the native speakers would actually communicate in is another thing. Now, if you had asked this question to me, my only answer would be, I communicate in Indian English. I don't communicate. I don't think I communicate in British English or I communicate in American English. There might be some similarities between Indian English and British English or Indian English and American English. But look at our pronunciations. Look at your pronunciation. For example, Mary, you said that you would like to label your variety of English as British English. Now, this morning, when I gave you those words for practice, do you realize that our pronunciation of many words is quite different from the way Britishers communicate in? Do you agree with me?
Yes, I agree with you.
Yes. So my first important point about attitude is, now, for example, Somyong, you said that you speak a blend and a mixture of British and American English. I would have been more happy if you had said mixture of British, American English and Thai English. Yeah, the answer differs. So I think it is very, very important that we users of belonging to that particular country, first of all, give a lot of recognition to that variety. We understand the prestige of that variety and work accordingly. So it is very important that the users of that language show a lot of positive attitude while using that variety. To give you a glimpse of what happened in India, you know, when the Britishers were ruling over India, India became free. India became an independent country in 1947. So for several years, when Britishers were ruling, Indian English was considered to be a substandard variety of English. And a lot of negative words, if you look into the history of Indian English, we come to know that a lot of negative words were used to refer to Indian English. So Indian English was called as Babu English, Kitchen English, Butler English, Chichi English, Boxwala English, Pidgin English, right? So it was all negative. Nobody appreciated the use of Indian English in India. But then after 1947, because India became an independent country, I think the situation changed. There is a more positive attitude towards Indian English. We now find more people saying that the variety I speak is Indian English. So I think one of the important points about global Englishes is that the kind of English that we speak, let us respect that kind of variation, which is bound to be there. But if we do not acknowledge our own variety, I think there is a problem. So you can say partly, you know, maybe I'm closer a little to British English, but that doesn't really mean that I speak exactly like a Britisher. So just as all of you talked about Tinglish and, you know, Thai and English, in India also we talk of Hinglish, Hindi and English, or Minglish, Marathi and English. So there could be a blend, but certainly I'm using some variation of Indian English. Do you agree with me? Any comment, any question? Sitisak, do you agree with me?
Yes, Professor. Yes.
Because, you know, if we don't recognize, if we don't give value to our own variety that we are speaking, that variety will not grow. Okay, so it is for the growth, it is for the recognition of that particular variety. James, do you agree with me?
Yes, Professor. My quick question is, how long does it take to the status of a foreign language of English in a country to become a variety of English like Indian English? How many decades do you think in average it is?
I think it should take at least 30 to 40 years. That's my understanding. But James, I think, you know, it will also depend. It is not just about teaching, learning. I think the educational policies of that country, the ministers of that country, it's a political decision. It's a policy making decision. As you know, several years ago, when we visited a country like France, which is very well known for its nationalistic fervor, and come what may, we will speak only French, you know, that attitude that they had. So even if they knew a little English, we have all heard these stories that if you ask a question in English, still a Frenchman would reply in French, even if he knows English, because they had this nationalism. Today, recently, some 5 years ago, when I visited France, I did observe that a lot of people have quite a positive attitude now towards English. They do use, of course, a lot of French. So to answer your question, I feel it's 30, 40 years, but if the ministers and if the people working on educational bodies, if people in Thailand strive a lot for development of English in the country, if there are mass, vast teaching programs. In fact, this is something that China is doing today and has been doing for a number of years. In 2010, I came across this article that a particular researcher had compared the articles written in English in India and in China. In 2003, in India, the total number of publication of articles written in India in English was far more than what happened in China. But the same kind of research, when it was done in 2013, we realized that China is ahead of India. My point is that in those 10 years, China took active steps for proliferation, growth of English. Some of my students today are doing a lot of online teaching. Some of them are in China and they're actually teaching English at school level. So it depends on the drive that Thailand will have. You know, if you establish a lot of collaborations, I think in the morning someone said, I think we should stop teaching English in Thai. We should stop teaching English in Myanmar. We have to develop the right techniques and we have to teach English to youngsters adopting the direct method, because you know the youth is the future of the country. So make them interested in it, because some of my Thai students tell me, that is those who are studying in Pune, they tell me that they started learning English only when they went to high school. But nowadays there is a change, right? So students can start, students could be trained in English early in their preschool itself. And about English, and if we have a positive attitude, it's not just for the sake of teaching learning. I would say it is also going to help the economy, the international relations of Thailand with other countries, because language is a medium of communication. So I think the responsibility for us as teachers is that we should motivate the learners, we should motivate the community, we should motivate the society. And you know, if we start training and teaching and testing of English, somehow people wrongly feel that this will spoil the regional language. You know, it's a very huge debate in India. They call it, they say that, is English a killer language in India? Killer, K-I-L-L-E-R. Now they say that so many languages are there in India, but then some people are so very fond of English that we have forgotten our regional languages. And these are major issues around global Englishes, that on the one hand, English is prospering a lot, English is developing a lot. On the other hand, is it hampering the growth of regional languages? So I think we have to take a very wise decision of ensuring that we love our mother tongue, we respect our regional languages, we will work for the development of regional languages. At the same time, we are going to learn and ensure that English expands. So, you know, I think that will be the right kind of attitude. I'll just give you one more example, and then if you have a question, you can ask. You know, some of my friends who have kids, let's say at the age of 1 or 2, they never use a regional language at home, and they have only started communicating in English. Why? Because of this 1-year-old child, when he wants to become a doctor, he should know English. A 2-year-old daughter, when she becomes a scientist, she should know English. So as soon as the child is back at home, parents communicate only in English. I don't do this at home. My daughter is 7 now, but I feel that the more languages you know, you are a rich person, because you understand different people, different communities, different cultures. And you know, biologically, children have a fantastic capacity of acquiring different languages simultaneously. So if they have this capacity, I think we should not curtail it. We should develop a positive attitude in them towards different Englishes and towards different languages. So I hope that researchers, good teachers like all of you will take this drive in hand of expanding English in your country. You know, you can even think of different ESP programs. For example, if I come to your country and I conduct a course of 15 days, let's say, I mean, this is just an example. Let's imagine that the doctors and the hospital service in Thailand is very good. For example, I don't know whether it is good or bad. I'm just giving you an example. So if the hospital's service in Thailand is very good, and if I happen to come to your country and James and I together, we design a course, English for Nurses in Thailand. Now that is an example, will be an example of ESP course. Now what is the advantage? It is not just that the nurses will learn English, but if at all the medical service in Thailand is very good, maybe people all over the world are going to travel to Thailand to meet those doctors, to get surgeries done, and so on and so forth. So it's not sufficient now that the nurses in Thailand only know Thai. So you have to take up these challenges as teachers and researchers, and I think it is job of everyone to spread English. And I think we can make a lot of difference this way to our English. And then when we teach English to nurses, I don't think every word has to be pronounced as the British or American pronounces it. Like this morning, for example, I think Sitisak pronounced the word as zero and not zero. I would say it's perfectly fine if we say zero. So zero will be acceptable pronunciation in Thai English, in Indian English. So I think it's wrong to imitate Britishers and Americans all the time. Therefore, do you understand how important it is to standardize a particular variety? Till we don't standardize, or if we don't standardize, we don't have any material to teach that variety. I think, James, I've given you a lot of homework and a lot of tasks that you can carry out in Thailand, right? So you can reduce the gap from all of you from Thailand or Myanmar. You can bring down the time span of 40 years to 10 years, 40 years to 20 years. It depends on how much we are all able to work together.
Yes, thank you, Professor. But at least I catch to one important point from your talk. No standard, no materials to teach. Yes, I do agree, and I can think about it more deeply. Yes, what does it mean? Yes, no standard, no materials to teach.
Yeah, because once it is standardized, now that gives us a direction to create materials. Absolutely. Any other question before we move ahead? Good point, but James, thank you. That was a very interesting point. Okay, let me now give you some samples and some examples of how Indian English, I mean, if you want me at the end of this session, I will also give you some examples of African English or Singapore English or Pakistani English, which are well-known examples of non-native varieties. But because I belong to this country and I think I speak only Indian English, these are the examples which are close to my heart. Now, if we consider Indian English or any non-native variety, we always say that it is looked upon as interference variety. What interferes? Our first language, our mother tongue, interferes in the process of using English. So my mother tongue, if it is Marathi or Hindi, it will come in between the use of English, and Thai and Myanmar will also interfere in the use of English. Now, just to give you one example, in India, people whose first language is, have you heard of the language Urdu? Have you heard of this language? It is used in India. People who speak Urdu or Punjabi language in India, they don't pronounce the word school as school, but they pronounce the word as school. School. Okay. Now, obviously, this is not something that happens in standard British or American English. As a teacher, as a researcher, I was interested in finding out as to why is it that they don't pronounce the word as school, and why do they say school? Now, listen to the answer. It is very interesting. In Punjabi language, the mother tongue of those children, they don't have a word in Punjabi which begins with 3 consonant sounds at the beginning of a word. In the word school, you have sa, ka, u, and l. So the first 2 sounds are consonant sounds. Whereas if you look at the words in Punjabi, either you have a combination of a vowel or a consonant, or you have combination of a consonant and a vowel. But you don't have any word in Punjabi where you have 2 consonant sounds. So what do Punjabi speakers do? They find it very difficult. Their tongue finds it difficult to articulate s and k together. So what do? They bring in one element of vowel sound. They say is school. All right, so now you have one vowel sound and one consonant sound. Isn't it interesting? Now this is how a non-native variety becomes an interference variety. Another words that we use for Indian English are, we call it a bookish variety. It is quite often characterized by spelling pronunciation. Indians have a tendency to read the words the way they are written. Sitisak, how do you pronounce the word CLIMB?
Yes, Professor. CLIMB. 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 Yes, climb.
Okay, say it once again, Sitisak.
CLIMB. Climb.
Yeah, what is the last sound?
B sound, Professor.
Okay. James, how do you pronounce that word? See, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, let's say
CLIM.
okay,
What is-
clam.
What is the last sound?
M.
Okay. So who is correct? Sitisak or James? Competition. Mary. How do you?
Because
Sitisak, Mary, how do you pronounce the word? Can you say that?
Climb.
What is the last sound?
Ba.
Sorry? B. B. Okay. Iman?
Yes, I pronounce climb. Yes.
Yes. So a lot of people from India, Myanmar, and Thailand would pronounce the last sound, but James is correct. If you check the pronunciation in British English, the last sound is not b, but the last sound is m. It is a bilabial, but it is
because
m.
because I hear the continuous form is climbing.
Yeah.
That's why I said climb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Setisak, I would say you did not make a serious mistake, because all of us coming from different non-native varieties are likely to pronounce the word as climb and not climb. So,
Yes,
you know,
Professor.
of course, as teacher, and because you are teaching, you need to remember when you teach this to your student that the last sound there is mo. The same thing happens with a word like bomb blast, B-O-M-B. We don't say bomb, we say bomb. Okay, so one of the properties of Indian English is that it is characterized by spelling pronunciation, that people feel that the way you write a spelling, you pronounce a word. Okay, I will give all of you one more word. Please write it in your notebook. I-double-M, I-double-M, E-D-I, I-double-M, E-D-I-A-T-E. I-double-M, E-D-I-A-T-E. Omar, can you tell me how do you pronounce that word?
Sorry, teacher. I-B-M.
I-M-M.
I-M-M.
E-D-I.
E-T-I.
E-D-I. D-I. D for dog.
E-D-I.
E-D-I-A-T-E.
A-T-E. M-T-8.
No. Okay. Vipapon.
I'm sorry, Professor, because I just pay attention at the okay. Sorry.
Immediate. Immediate.
What is the new one for me?
The word is I-double-M.
Immediate.
Immediate. Okay.
Oh, immediate.
Immediate.
Immediate. Yes.
Right. see, one of the problems is that because non-native speakers have a tendency to read the word as they write, you know, it in British English, it is immediate.
Immediate.
American English, it's immediate. But many Indian speakers and many non-native speakers have a tendency to pronounce the m sound twice, which is wrong. You should not say immediate, or we should not say immediate. It has to be one m, immediate. Either you say immediate or immediate, both are correct. All right, so we cannot read, and we should not read the words as per the spelling on the page. Another part is Indian English. I've used the abbreviation IE on the slide, stands for Indian English. So Indian English tends to be a little archaic. Archaic meaning old. You know, some of the words that are not used in British English, they continue to be used in Indian English by Indian speakers. For example, if someone says, she's my better half, it refers to the fact that she's my wife. Also, Indian English is not a homogeneous variety. As I just said at the beginning, it is such a huge country with different layers of competencies, and it is not the same. All Indians do not speak or communicate in English in exactly the same level. And therefore, as I've argued, we first need to focus on the educated use of English. Any question? I hope all of this is an important point about non-native variety, that usually a non-native variety would be also called interference variety. So your Thai interferes in the process of using English. If you're from Myanmar, Myanmar language interferes in the process of using English. Any question?
Let me share.
Yeah.
When I listen to Indian English, I think like the sound of pronunciations is different too. Different. Like some like V or W is different too. And some word that I have seen in this, I think is pronunciation is different. I mean the sound. I mean
yes,
accent
yes.
or the sound like that.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think it's different.
Yeah. So Vipaphone, now, you know, if you are interested in phonology, you may think of how Thai speakers' pronunciation is different from British English, right? You can collect data, and that's the way we have to do it. That is the way we have to work on different aspects of world Englishes, that we need to observe how educated people use English. We need to collect data. We need to analyze data. We need to observe people using English. And that is how we can take this field ahead. All right, let me give you some examples of syntax. Most Indians use non-count nouns as count nouns. Quite a lot of Indians say accommodations, but native varieties do not allow you to make this word or use this word in the plural form. So native speakers only say accommodation or furniture. What happens in Thailand? Do you pluralize these words? Do you use them in plural? Are you close to India or you're close to UK? How do you pronounce these words? Do you use it in plural form?
I think in my opinion, I am familiar with sometimes like in India, English India, yes, sometimes. Okay. But I never think before, because I think I think it can use non-count or count nouns.
Right,
in
you know,
fact,
some
I
people
mistake about it. I never know about it before.
Okay. You know, even word like fish and fishes, English doesn't allow you to say fishes. English doesn't allow you to say hares. Hair, plural is also hair, but a lot of people use hairs. So I think that's the same in India, Thailand, and Myanmar. We are all the same because we are non-native users, right? So that will be one difference. Deviant use of prepositions. Quite often Indians say he's angry on me instead of saying he's angry. What do we say in British English? What will be the correct sentence?
With me.
With me, correct. So instead of with, many Indians tend to say on. Now, why does that happen? If I translate this sentence in my language, in my mother tongue, I use the preposition on. And that's why when people communicate in English, there is a tendency to use on. So when you take up samples from your varieties, you can also think of different reasons behind this. Then we find use of double comparative. For example, this arrangement is more better than that. You cannot use double comparative or double superlative, right? English doesn't allow you to do that. So that is different. Many people in India introduce themselves by starting and by using the reflexive pronoun. Like people in India say myself John or myself Madhuri. Do people in Thailand and Myanmar also do the same?
Not yet, Professor. I myself.
Yeah, but you can't say I myself Mary. That doesn't sound correct, right? Have you heard your students stay saying myself Peter, myself Mary? Is it a learner's error? Do your students commit mistakes of this kind? Sitisak?
Yes, Professor.
Have you heard people in Thailand introducing themselves with the word myself?
I sometimes heard myself, and sometimes I heard some students use me. Yeah, they use me as the subject of the sentence. Yes.
But it's not correct, right?
Yes, Professor.
Right. So you can't say me Sitisak or you can't say myself Sitisak. So now that's a very common pattern again in Indian English, where Indians tend to start the sentence with a reflexive pronoun. So myself opened the door. In British English, it will be I opened the door. And let us all remember a simple rule about British English, that no sentence can start with a self form. If you are using myself, it is necessary that I is a part of the same sentence. So I can say, I call myself Madhuri. That is correct, because now I have myself in the sentence and it corresponds to I. I can say, James, you yourself can do this work. Because if yourself is there, you has to be a part of the same sentence. Right?
Professor?
Yeah.
Yes, is this another type of mother tongue interference?
No, for this sentence, the reason is not mother tongue interference. It is just that it has got established in India, I would say, because self form is not there in my mother tongue, but still people tend to say that. So you know,
so it
this
means
is
that it's not the type of word by word translation from the first language.
No,
but it's the style of usage, right?
Yes, style of usage. Nowadays, I would also call it a case of teacher's error. You know, right at the time when children go to school, many teachers at school level introduce themselves with myself, so children pick it up. So, you know, something that is taught at a very young age, at an early age, we find it very difficult to remove it later. So mother tongue interference is not the reason for this. Sitisak, there is a book, maybe you're familiar with it. It's called Error Analysis by Pitt Corder, P-I-T.
Oh, yes, Pitt Corder.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pitt Corder is a very well-known ELT expert, and for all of you, he talks about different kinds of errors that learners commit, and he also talks about why do they commit error. So I think myself is a kind of error that can go into teacher-induced error. It is an error because the teachers teach them that way.
Yes, that's
Okay.
very interesting, Professor. Thank you.
Yeah, he makes a very, read the book, in fact all of you, he makes a very interesting comment on teacher induced error, learner induced error, casual errors, analogy errors. So as teachers, you know, it is our responsibility to not just correct the learner's error. I think we also have to give a thought to why my student is committing error. Do you get the point? So that we are able to explain him in a better way. All right, then my next example is that Indians have a tendency to use some of the stative verbs in a dynamic form. So a lot of Indians say, for example, I'm knowing him well. In British English, it is I know him well.
I know him well. Yeah.
So all of you understand what is the meaning of stative verbs. Verbs like know, believe,
Yes.
see, understand, remember. These verbs normally cannot be used in the present continuous tense.
Yes, I see.
But in Indian context, we find a lot of people using these verbs in continuous tense. So they do say something like, for example, I'm remembering my friend very well, instead of I remember my friend well. Okay. The next example, I think it is a part of also Thailand and Myanmar, use of present perfect with past adverb. I have completed the work yesterday. A lot of Indians, a lot of educated Indians say that. I think even Thais say that, and even people from Myanmar. And a lot of African speakers, Singapore speakers, Pakistani speakers, they also use present perfect with past adverb. Whereas if you check the rule in British English, it should be I completed the work yesterday. Clear? Is the example clear? Yeah. Also, present progressive is used instead of present perfect progressive. So Indians have a tendency to say, I'm learning music since 1997. What will be the correct sentence in British English?
Have been learning.
Right, absolutely.
Perfect convenient.
Yes, so because you have the preposition since, it should be I have been learning music since 1997. Sitisak, now this example is a case of interference error for me in India. If I translate this sentence in Indian language we use the present continuous tense. That is why, as a learner of English, I feel that in my language I'm using present continuous, so I should use present continuous in English also. Clear?
Yes.
Yes, Professor. Yes.
Yes, Professor.
Yeah. This morning, Dr. Akarapon had referred to the question tag na, which is said and which is used in Thai. I am happy that Indians also use it. So Thai and Indians share something in common. So a lot of Indians say, he was looking handsome, isn't it? Now, actually, the rule of question tag tells us it should be he was looking handsome, wasn't he? Or Indians have a tendency to say you're coming no, or you're coming na. I think Thais also say that, as far as I remember. So there will be certain common factors and common points that we come across in these different non-native varieties. Okay. Any question about syntax of Indian English?
Professor? Okay, yes, these features are spoken by educated people. Okay,
Yes.
my question is, okay, what is the exact cause of this phenomena? Is it happen by mistake, and you do the mistake a lot so often, so it becomes a norm, or the cause is people know the mistake, but they tend to use this way because it is easier for them to speak? Which one is correct for having these features, Professor?
The main reason, James, is interference. It is because we have not picked it up as mother tongue. So that's the main reason. Now you and I call it an error because we are students of English, right? We are concerned with English grammar. The world is not concerned with English grammar. They don't even know that they are committing an error, right? So when I completed my PhD and I collected data and I collected sample for my PhD, I collected data from 11 newspapers, famous newspapers like Indian Express and Times of India and so on. I analyzed 10 magazines. Then I took television programs. I took radio programs. So all my data came from educated speakers. And I found that very spontaneously these patterns are used. So you and I would call it an error. But the advantage is that if Indian English or whenever Indian English gets standardized, they will not be looked upon as error. Today, because Indian English is not standardized, for example, if my student in my class, let's say an undergraduate student, today if he writes, I am learning music since 1987, I mark it as wrong because I'm following standard British English to correct the paper. But if we come up with a grammar book of Indian English, if Indian English gets standardized, one fine morning, I should be allowed to accept this as a teacher. Why? Because I think outside my class, even I must be using a sentence as a teacher, even in my day-to-day conversation. For example, if I say, I'm working hard since morning. Now, I am a teacher of English. I'm a competent teacher of English. Still, I happen to say I'm working hard since morning. So if I'm using a particular pattern as per the Indian standards, how can I expect my students to, master British or American English? I think we should accept Indian English. So for that to happen, a lot of research, first of all, has to take place on the non-native varieties. Okay.
Yes, Professor. So now in your educational system, okay, from kindergarten to university, now are you teaching American English, British English, or Indian English?
Okay, we do teach British English for the reason that we know that Indian English exists, but there is no material on Indian English. That is why I did a PhD on Indian English, so that it contributes to standardization. The only thing that has happened is that, as teachers, we all have to work with priority of errors. Okay, I'll explain what I mean by this. James, if you were a teacher in India, okay, you're teaching first year undergraduate student. Your student commits 50 mistakes in one essay. Okay. For example, he writes, I has a pen instead of I have a pen. Okay. Let's imagine this is one error. The second error is he writes, I am learning music since 1997. Now, if you are a teacher who is aware of Indian English, you have a passive knowledge of Indian English as a teacher, you will consider error number 1, I has a pen, to be more serious than the second error. Second, you will call it error, but you will say it's not a very serious error because I know a lot of Indians use this construction. Maybe one fine day when Indian English gets standardized, this will be acceptable pattern. So let me not spend time correcting this error right now, but I'm going to correct the error I has a pen, because even in future, this is not going to be a pattern of Indian English. Right? So, these are very crucial decisions for pedagogy, for education, for teacher. On the other hand, some teachers, out of fashion and prestige, they only want to speak like Americans and they do a very bad job. It sounds very artificial. They're not able to pronounce words like Americans. So I also feel that we need to be true to ourselves, use language the way we can use it. At the same time, we need to work towards the process of standardization. And that is why we are talking about all this with research students so that you have some ideas, you get some ideas, and you might want to work in the field of ELT with reference to global Englishes. Okay, have I answered your question, James?
Yes, Professor. Okay, I have got a lot of key points from you. Yes,
Good,
and I learned
good.
that it is so crucial. Yes, crucial as a teacher
Yes.
to to check students' work.
Right, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Does we ask any question?
Yeah, sure.
Because of the differences, how can we know which is the better, or we can use or try to understand the word English, professor,
Yeah.
because
Now,
of the differences.
yeah. See, Vipapon, if you are writing an article for a journal today, okay. For example, if you're going to send your article to an American publisher, and if you are familiar with American English, I would say use American English because that's an American journal, right? But if you're not so familiar with American English, and if you use British English now in the journal, I think even Americans accept it. So this is what I call openness in attitude. We have grown, with the development of varieties of English. But for example, because Thai English doesn't have any status right now, you can't say that I will write my article in Thai English and you accept it. They may not, because there is nothing like Thai English today. Thai English is not standardized. So the answer to your question is, at the moment, we will have to use the native varieties, either of the native variety. Okay.
I do agree with you. Thank you,
Yes,
Professor.
Yes, you're most welcome. Any other question? Okay, let me give you some examples from the level of morphology or lexis. Typically, Indians use redundant expressions like I have headache pain. You can't say headache pain. In the word headache, ache, A-C-H-E, already means pain.
Yes.
Right? So English doesn't allow you to say headache pain. Lot of my students, when I teach in the class, they say, ma'am, please repeat again. Is it used in Thailand? Is it used in Myanmar by your students? We should only say, ma'am, would you please repeat? Because repeat and repetition has the meaning of again. Do you understand my point?
Yes, I see. We usually return or repeat, because repeat is mean do it again, not again, not use again. Yes, I see, I see.
But what about students in Thailand or Myanmar? Do your students commit this mistake? Do they say repeat again or return back, something like that?
Yes, Professor.
Yes.
Sometimes,
so,
Professor.
Sometimes. So,
sometimes, yeah.
We are also arriving at this point that there might be some common issues among different non-native varieties also, some common patterns. And James and others who, if you want to carry out research, you can even look at 2-3 different countries and see if they share something in common. After I completed my research on Indian English at the PhD level, I analyzed Singapore English and African English to some extent, and I tried to see that there are some common patterns and similarities with Indian English. Right? So we can travel a lot, we can explore a lot, and we can see how people use English. Then certain words that are not found in British English or American English, they are used in Indian English. So, Indian speakers of English have contributed a lot, I would say, to the development of English. So certain words like Gymkhana, Guru, Kurta, Sari, they were first used by Indians, and now all these words are acceptable in English dictionary. Right? And that is remarkable. So I would say that English is a very open language, because in English, you are all familiar with borrowing as a process of word formation. So English has borrowed a lot of words from Italian, from Portuguese, from Indian languages, from French, from German, from Spanish, and now all these words are English words, right? So that is how there is a kind of cooperation among different languages. You also see that at the level of sentences, now this goes back to Sitisak's point, that at times we tend to formulate sentences because of mother tongue interference. For example, some Indians say, stop eating my head. It means don't trouble me. Now, if I translate this sentence in my mother tongue, it is exactly the same. Stop eating my head. But normally in British English, we won't say that. Or there's an expression number 3. In fact, you will not understand it as well. Does any one of you understand the meaning of sentence number 3? He's a 420.
He's a 420.
You will not. Most probably, you will not understand.
Is this mean 24?
No.
No.
No. Okay, in my language, or the national language of India, Hindi, 420 of course is a number, right? 420. In Hindi we translate this as 420. It's a number. And in Hindi, the meaning of this number is a foolish person. In Hindi, it means foolish person. So when an Indian refers to he is a 420, he means to say that he is a foolish person. But only within India we will understand this, right? Because that's a cultural factor and other people will not be able to relate to this. Look at the last 2 sentences. Some Indians have a tendency to repeat words. So people say little things are important. Or people say very good small children. Now small children is also redundant. A child is bound to be small. So there is no need to say small children. Do you understand? A child is always small. So how can you say small child? That's redundant. So a repetition of little or very, that is typically used by Indian speakers of English. Clear? Any question?
Yes, Professor, but yes, thank you very much for explaining this point, because sometimes it's not only interference, but the expression or the saying in its own language is another kind of factor for understanding. So just like the sentence, he's a 420, or stop eating my head. Although even though we know that okay, it translates or interfere from the native from first language in India, but when foreigners read it, we still not don't understand until we know the expression, the meaning of the expression in the first language. Yes, thank you.
True. Very apt. Yes. So till we know the meaning in first language, we can't interpret. You know, Sitisak, if you look at sentence number 4 here, he will make a chutney out of me. I'll explain to you what is the meaning of the Indian word chutney, and then you will understand the meaning.
Yes.
You know coconut? Coconut?
Yes, coconut.
Yeah. You break coconut into pieces. Okay. You put it in a mixer and you grind it. You get chutney. So it is coconut powder actually. Now, when you say he will make a chutney out of me, it means he will grill me. You know, if a student says, oh, my professor, he will make a chutney out of me, it means he's going to squeeze me. He's going to ask me a lot of questions and, you know, it will go on and on. So you are right. Unless we understand the meaning of words in that language, we won't be able to figure out.
Yes. So so the culture and the way of life is as well important. Yes.
Absolutely. And that is going to be my next point. I'm going to talk about pragmatics and interference. So far we have talked about phonology and interference, morphology and interference, syntax and interference. Then we need to also talk about pragmatics and interference.
Yes,
Any other
thank
question?
you.
Yeah, welcome. Any other question?
What does it mean, heart of hearts? Heart of hearts.
Okay. In his heart of hearts, he knew he was wrong. It means genuinely, sincerely.
Oh, yes, I see, I see.
You know, if you look into your heart, so to say, actually, ideally, he knew he was wrong.
Yes, I see.
You know the meaning of I have a soft corner for him? Number one.
No, no, no. A soft corner for him, what does it mean?
What does it mean? Come on, guess. Others.
Soft corner.
Somyong, what do you think is the meaning? You have been in India. You must have seen people using the expression soft corner.
Somyong.
Yes, Ajahn Somyong. Come on.
For a soft corner, corner for him. That's right. For this one.
Yeah. What is the meaning of soft corner?
For me, I think I can help I can help him. It is the meaning of I have a soft corner for him.
Okay, I can help him. Okay.
Yes.
Not really. Any other meaning that you can think of? Any guess? Sitisak?
Sitisak.
Yes, Professor.
What do you think?
The word heart of hearts, right?
Sorry?
No, a soft corner.
Soft corner.
Soft corner. I have a soft corner for him. A soft corner, in my feeling, is like a nice place or the safe place. Yes.
No.
I don't know. I just guess.
No, that's okay. You will not know because this is Indian English. Fine,
Yes.
perfectly fine.
Yes, I know.
Good for him or not? You're nice for him.
Okay, I will give you a clue. I will make a small story for you so that you may understand the meaning of I have soft corner. If I say in my class, there are 20 students, or in one teacher's class, there are 20 students, but this teacher had a soft corner for this boy. This teacher had a soft corner for this boy. What does that mean? What can it mean? James?
James.
Yes, Professor.
What can it mean? Your guess?
Maybe I agree. Is it agree? I agree with him.
No. Okay, I think I'll give away the answer because it's a different culture and meaning. To have a soft corner for someone means to have a special liking or place for that person in our mind.
Can it be impression? I have some good impression for him.
Yes, you have a good place in your heart. So there might be 50 students in the class, but we all have our soft corners, you know, people who work very sincerely, students who are very, very genuine, we have soft corner for them. So at times we might be sympathetic to those students because they've always been good students. So to be considerate, to be nice to someone, to have a good impression about someone, that is to have a soft corner. Okay.
I see. Stop eating my head. Eating.
But I think we have this
what does it
idiom
mean? Stop eating my head.
Ajahn Vipapon, we have this idiom in Thai, you know.
Yeah, Ajahn James, right.
เลิกกินหัวฉันนะ อย่ากินหัวคิวอย่ากินหัว
แปล
คิว
ว่า
ฉั
อะ
น
ไร
What
In
is it?
English.
What is it in?
I don't understand him because he tell me in idiom of Thai, but I don't know. Stop eating my head.
Yeah, stop eating my head is Indian. What was your example, James, from Thai?
Okay, อาจารย์ศิริศักดิ์ if your example is different from me you can share
Yes, I think
Okay.
yes, Ajahn
Okay,
Jem,
for me in Thai, okay, หยุดกินหัวฉัน or stop eating my head, it can mean stop taking advantages from me. Okay,
okay.
like I don't
Okay.
use my money, don't use my energy, stop stop taking some good things from me because I have given you a lot. I'm nothing now. Yes, that means stop eating my head. Okay, that's my
Okay.
example. อาจารย์ศิริศักดิ์ are you different?
Yes, I think it's another one. Stop eating my head is like in Thai. From my view, is like please stop. What is it? Please stop hit me or doing something bad with me. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. So I think Ajahn Sitisak and Ajahn James, you should write a paper on Indian English and Thai English, similarities and differences. Right?
Yes, thank you, Professor.
I think there is a lot of scope and a lot of room to do that. All right, I'll just come to one more example on pragmatics and interference. Now, when we talk of pragmatics, it is contextual, it is about context. I'm also going to say a little about this in my next session. But for example, the speech act of thanking, which is so common in British and American English, is not so common in Indian English. Now, not that Indians are rude or Indians never thank, I don't want to say that, but we don't thank to the extent and frequency with which we see the speech act of thanking in British and American English. So they thank too often. Indians don't thank so often. And interestingly, the reason for this also is mother tongue interference. That, you will be surprised that in my language, in the Indian language that I speak, there is no word for thank you in my language. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist at informal level. So something that I do not practice or I do not use in my mother tongue, I may not use it to a large extent in English. So that is the reason that once again our first language interferes in the process of learning English, and questions that are generally asked only in private domain in native varieties of English are often asked in public domain in Indian English. Somehow Indians have a tendency to ask questions to even strangers, like, where are you from India? Are you married? Where do you stay? How many kids do you have? Normally, all these questions will be asked only in highly personal contexts in native varieties. So these are differences that occur because of pragmatics and because of the fact that we belong to different cultures. Is the point clear? Mary, have you understood this?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. I just want you to leave on with you some of these names. All these writers have worked a lot on Indian English. There is a book called The Indianization of English by Braj Kachru. He has done a lot of work on Indian English. We have Mulkraj Anand, The King Emperor's English. We also have a book written by S.V. Parashar, Indian English Functions and Form. So if you want to know more about Indian English, if you want to explore Indian English more, certainly you can read these books. So I think we have covered 1.5 hours and it might be tea break for you. So thank you very much. And I hope you understand how the non-native varieties of English are different from the native varieties. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So with
Let's take
reference
a tea break.
Yeah. For 10 minutes, how many minutes? Yeah, Mary? Dr. Kampi, Mary?
Yes, 10-minute break. Be coming
Yeah,
back
and
10
for the
minutes,
last
Prof.
section.
10 minutes.
yeah, so 10 minutes break, and then Kampi, do we continue for 1 hour, or how much time do we have?
Continue 40 or 50, not more than one.
Okay, okay,
So
fine.
40 minutes can be the last section.
Okay, okay. I hope I have not made you all feel tired.
Yes.
I'm
Ajahn
not
James
tired.
yes. Ajahn James will be back to fix his electric instrument again. Okay, 10-minute break.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
See you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mary.
My friend.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, once again.
Once again, Ajahn. You stay fresh.
Dr. Kampirpap, how is the weather like over Buriram now?
It's slightly going to rain, Ajahn James.
Okay, the same here. Sir. There's, wind and cloudy now. And the temperature dropped.
I think 3 or 4 drop down.
Hello, baby. It's sunny and too hot in here. How about in your place, Yimancho?
The same, teacher. Very hot.
Very hot.
Hotel and hotel.
I have seen you use something to fan your Mary. Outside is very hot, but I stay inside my bedroom. Air condition to make me cold. Yes.
But in here, the electricity off.
Really? Wow.
Really always off.
Myanmar, we can get 24-hour electricity recently. So we are in a trouble. Alternatively, we got. And it often break out very often.
Our guest speaker is very energetic.
On my
It's raining now. Yes.
Really? On my win.
Oh,
Are you at your house?
yes, my house, at my house. I join with my phone and not laptop. And so
And so, please continue. No problem. I'm happy that all of you communicate in English. Do you, like students from Myanmar, do you understand Thai? And do students from Thai understand Myanmar language?
Not yet, Professor.
So that's why all of you are communicating in English. You have to, because you don't understand each other's language. But the moment all Thais would come together, I think they communicate only in Thai. And all Myanmar students coming together, I'm sure they'll communicate only in Myanmar. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
We are very much love to speak our mother tongue.
Yes, of course. That's the closest language to us. Right?
When we speak,
Therefore, it is called mother tongue, because mother is closer to us.
yes. We just remind us we are English teachers, so we should talk English.
Right. Okay. So to conclude what I was saying, in the previous session, and we are moving towards the last session, where I'm going to show you how to bring literature and language together as far as the notion of global English is concerned. I hope I've made my point clear that with reference to both the native and the non-native varieties, we see differences at the phonological level, at the word level, at the level of grammar, at the level of pragmatics. So, because our contexts are different, our cultures are different, our language that we speak is different. I think all these factors are responsible for global Englishes, world Englishes, and widely, the varieties of English themselves. So I'll take you ahead from here, and I think it is very important to conclude with this notion that whatever we have seen so far, we had samples of British and American English, which is a norm-developed variety. Right? Just remember the phrase norm-developed varieties. Norm, N-O-R-M, developed varieties. So British and American English are norm-developed. Indian English, I would say it is a norm-developing variety because the norm is getting developed, right? As I told you, in India, we are trying to standardize Indian English. At one of the states in India named Gujarat, we are trying to compile all the material on Indian English, which can come together, and the process of standardization, to answer James's question, even that process is a long process. So the work of compiling material on Indian English, James, it started some 5 years ago and it is still on. We don't really have a concrete book right now, but I would say that we are in the process of standardization. And a country where English is used as a foreign language, where we can say that it is countries like Thailand or Myanmar or in other situations. So in these situations, English is a foreign language, and you can call these situations norm-dependent varieties. So please remember these 3 words. I think they will be useful for you. Norm-developed. Please write them down. Norm-developed. Norm-developed. Then you have norm-developing. Norm-developing and norm-dependent. Norm-dependent. So British and American English are norm-developed. Indian English is norm-developing. And in countries where English is used as a foreign language, we can call this norm-dependent because they have to depend wholly and solely on the other teaching models. Okay, so before I move on to the last session on literature and language and how literature or the teaching of literature can help us to talk about varieties of English and global Englishes in the classroom. Any other question which is left unanswered? So I answer that first and we move ahead. Any other question?
Yes, Professor.
Yes.
For the norm developing norm will be British and American, and norm developing will be Indian, right?
Indian, African, Singapore.
Yes, and norm dependence can be like a Thailand.
Yes. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? All right, let me share screen once again. Is the screen visible?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. So I've called this teaching language through literature, but of course, I'm not really going to speak it from the perspective of generally doing language through literature, but I would like to relate it, of course, to our theme, and that is the theme of global Englishes and varieties of English. Now, in the first session, we defined the notion of teaching, and to extend that point, I would say that, just to recap, that a teacher needs to know how to teach in many different ways. A teacher needs to create suitable materials for learning and play the role of a material producer. The teacher needs to simplify the topic and provide adequate practice. And we need to make learning a rewarding experience for the learners. So to answer that question posed by James, that, at the moment, what happens exactly in India? Because we have British and American English as standardized models, but then you don't have Indian English as a standardized model. So how do you operate in the class? How do you operate within this situation of global Englishes? The answer to that is that through many different ways, we have to give exposure to our learners to these global Englishes. There was a time in India, for example, that most of our curriculum was highly based on British literature. 80% of it was always British literature. But then we have moved from the teaching of English literature to literatures in English. And I think literature can be one of the very useful resources, one of the very useful ways to teach our learners and let them know something about how we don't have only one uniform English, but even creative writers write in a variety of ways. We have different varieties that exist in the world. So I think literature can help us to make them ready for this aspect of variation and for the aspect of global English. I would strongly support the view of a Russian linguist named Jakobson, who once said, "A linguist deaf to the poetic function of language and a literary scholar indifferent to linguistic problems and unconversant with linguistic methods are equally flagrant anachronisms." I'll briefly explain what his meaning, what he tries to say in simple words is this. He tries to say that a linguist who doesn't read literature, who doesn't know anything about literature, and a literary scholar, if he doesn't know anything about linguistics, if he is not familiar with the linguistic problems, then both these are serious issues and serious problems. Of course, the point that Jakobson is trying to make is that literature and language should go together, right? They are not enemies of each other. They are not poles apart. For practical convenience in our departments in universities and colleges, we have a language department and we have a literature department. But that does not mean that a literature teacher doesn't know anything about language and a language teacher doesn't know anything about literature. So they have to go hand in hand. And it is in this sense, I feel that teaching literature is or could be a great advantage. And we can see certain examples to understand how we can give exposure to different varieties of English through the study of literature. So let me quickly ask this question as to why should we teach literature? And these are some of the important reasons that come to my mind. I think we should teach literature so that we are able to enhance the learners' linguistic competence. We can make them better language users. We should teach literature for their overall personality development. Do you agree with me? Can literature be used for personality development?
Yes, Professor.
Yes. Can you think of an example, Mary? Which
Yes,
text?
If when we read, for example, literature, like novel or short story, when we know about a character, how he behaved, how he acts in this story, And we will have to know what is the good thing or the bad thing for others. And we can develop our personality from the knowledge we get from the story.
Absolutely. So one of the aims, one of the objectives of teaching literature could be to help learner become a better human being. We can also enrich and provide cultural understanding. For example, you all come from a different situation. So if you read a novel written by Indian author, you will understand something about Indian culture through that novel. So literature becomes a pathway for you to understand Indian culture. The fourth point is a point of our concern for providing exposure to varieties of English. If we read different types of literature, if we motivate our learners to read different types of literature, I think we are able to, and we will be able to provide a lot of exposure to varieties of English for making learning contextualized, because literature gives us an opportunity to teach language within a context. And I think that is very, very important. And finally, we also read literature and we teach literature to derive pleasure. So my request to all of you is that we all teach different kinds of learners and different kinds of students. Some of us may teach sometimes at school level, sometimes at high school level, sometimes at university level. I think we have level. I think we need to understand with what objective are we teaching literature. So for example, to school going child, a very, very young child, I don't think we should pick up literary text so that he gets exposure to varieties of English. That will be too early, because still he's struggling with English. He has to know English. But those of you who teach English at college level or university level, certainly one of your objectives could be that you are using certain literary text so that you are able to provide exposure to global Englishes and exposure to varieties of Englishes through your talk. Okay. Do you agree with me? Any question about this slide?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. Okay. Now, as I just said in the morning, we will take few examples from literature. This is a short story called The Dear, this is a one-act play called The Dear Departed. Now, I think that if you want to train your students in correct articulation of words, correct articulation of sounds, we can use drama, we can use literature. This is a dialogue where Henry says, "Father died this morning," and Mrs. Slater says, "Where did he keep his slippers yesterday?" "Henry, we must bring the bureau down here now. My sister will be here soon." Now, there is a context here that, Mrs. Slater is against her father, and she's not even touched or moved by the news of her father's death. So in her speech, she will focus on the word slippers and yesterday. Normally when someone gives the news of death, like father died this morning, the usual response is, "Oh no, I'm shocked, I'm surprised." But look at Mrs. Slater. She says, "Where did he keep his slippers yesterday?" She doesn't feel anything. She doesn't feel sorry. So when we teach our learners to say the sentences correctly, our learner should not read the sentence as, "Where did he keep his slippers yesterday?" That's a very monotonous reading. And I think drama gives us an opportunity, or literature gives us an opportunity to articulate the sentences correctly or place the correct kind of stress. And that is how we can teach British English accent, or British English or American English accent to our learners. One of the important aspects of teaching of English is developing the learner's word power, because they have to know synonyms, antonyms, collocations, phrases, idioms. And the more we are able to do that, they will understand different world Englishes. For example, there is a poem by Emerson, "The Mountain and the Squirrel." Now, this poem makes a lot of use of antonyms. There are a lot of opposite words, and we can train our students to use and find out the opposite words. All of you are familiar with the poem Daffodils by William Wordsworth. Now you have a lot of words in the poem which mean to see. So there is a word used in the poem gaze. The poet says, I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. So when you look at the word gaze, you understand that it is to look at something for a longer span of time. So literature can be a very useful source, I would say, to develop language, to develop word power as well. There is a poem by Longfellow, The Rainy Day, where he uses the expression thoughts cling. You know, cling meaning to join together. Now, quite often as non-native speakers of English, you know, we might say thoughts came to my mind, or this is what I thought of. But thoughts cling is a very nice expression. It's a very creative expression. So the more exposure we get to literature, I think we can pick up a lot of language. Collocation like moldering past. So poetry is all rich with different kinds of collocations. There is a story, a short story by Ruskin Bond, The Eyes Have It. Now, one of the statements in this story is, they have too much to take in. Can you tell me what is the meaning of to take in?
To eat, right?
To
eat.
Eat? E-A-T?
Yes.
No, no, no. That's not the meaning of take in. Any other guess?
To feel.
To feel. Take in actually mean to imbibe, to accept, to think of. So when we say they have too much to take in, you know, there are so many books and we have a lot to take in. We have a lot to read. We have a lot to assimilate. That's the meaning of take in. The train pulled out of the station. Pulled out meaning, what's the meaning of pull out? Yeah.
Leave, right.
To take off.
Left,
Yes, leave.
left, right. The train came out of the station. So quite often, what my point is that as non-native users, if we have, you know, our students have less exposure to English. So we should teach them language. And I'm just arguing that we should also bring in a lot of literature so that they kind of get information about different varieties of English. Just give me a second. Okay. So, to these different collocations and varieties, we can give them exposure to English about different varieties. Let me give you some examples from grammar now, or even from songs and poetry that will answer, I think, Yimon's question also in the morning. There are a lot of poems written by Indian authors, for example, which will give you understanding or exposure to Indian English as a variety. You can just note down in your notebook the first title, Goodbye Party to Miss Pushpa T.S. The author's name, the poet's name is Nissim Ezekiel. And if we read literature of this kind, I think that helps us to understand and that gives us exposure to different varieties of English. I'm going to read out one poem to you written by Indian poet, and you will understand my point as to how we can provide exposure to varieties of English through the medium of literature. You can just pay attention. While I read this poem, whatever patterns come to your mind, now that we have talked about Indian English, if you find that this particular line is a good example or could be a good example of Indian English, you can note it in your notebook. Okay, while I read the poem, I'll go a little slow so that you are able to catch it. The title of the poem is, What is Your Good Name, Please? What is your good name, please? I'm remembering we used to be neighbors in Hindu colony 10-15 years before. Never mind. What do you know? You are in service, isn't it? I'm matric failed, self-employed. Only last year, I celebrated my marriage. It was intercaste. Now I'm not able to make the two ends meet. Cost of living is going up every day. Sugar, for example, is costing much. I'm eschewing sugar therefore since last 2 months. Also, I'm diabetes. It is good, no? Excuse me, please. Where are you putting up? Never mind. You will be coming to my place one day, surely, I'm hoping. Not to disappoint. You are Indian, no? How I make out? And the poem goes. I won't read the whole poem, but while I was reading, did you catch some Indian English patterns? Anyone? Yes, Mary?
Yes, I'm remembering.
Exactly. Yes, we can't say I am remembering. It should be I remember. All right. Also, similarly, it is said I am hoping. Now, use of continuous tense is used in this poem. It is used in literature here. So, if you in Thailand or if some professor in the United States, if he wants to give some exposure about how Indians use English, we may use literature. But the warning or suggestion for everyone would be that we all know that in literature, the writer takes what is called as poetic license. And therefore, it is important that we also test, we meaning we as linguists also test whether this is an acceptable sample in educated Indian English. Because sometimes literary writers may exaggerate a particular pattern and that may not be a pattern in Indian English at all. So as linguists, my point is that as students of language, we need to be very particular and we can test on the basis of educated use as to whether that particular pattern exists in Indian English. Also, we can make use of songs. For example, there is a song by Beyonce, If I Were a Boy. And this is how it goes. If I were a boy, even just for a day, I would roll out of bed in the morning and throw on what I wanted and go drink beer with the guys. So if you find that, for example, with Indian speakers, there's a lot of problems to use the conditional tense. So we can make use of a song and through that song, we can teach the learner the art of writing or using conditional tense correctly. So the point I'm making is that the more exposure we provide to our learners through different varieties of English, we will be able to do a better job. There is a short story called Uncle Podger Hangs a Picture. Now, if you find that your learners are struggling a lot with use of articles, prepositions, or question formation, once again, this kind of story could come handy, where you can make use of this story to provide exposure to how different components in grammar are used in British English. If you want to teach the command, the imperative form, let's imagine you take this song by Tony Braxton, Unbreak My Heart, and this is how the song goes. Don't leave me in all this pain. Don't leave me out in the rain. Come back and bring back my smile. Come and take these tears away. Can you read the poem silently once and tell me which grammatical form is frequently used here? Which grammatical form? Yes, which grammatical form is continuously used in these 4 lines? Vipapon?
Present simple.
Present simple, and it is all don't, come and come, which means it is the imperative form, the command form.
Professor?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it's the imperative form, right?
Yeah, imperative form. When we give command, we use there are different types of sentences. You have the declarative sentence, exclamatory sentence, imperative sentence, and this is the imperative sentence. So to teach the correct form of how to form a command, apart from short stories, apart from literature and novels and plays, we can also effectively make use of songs. So remember, I'm saying that in the notion or amidst world Englishes, I think one of the responsibilities that all of us have is to become material producers, so that we are able to give exposure to different varieties of English. Is the point clear? Any questions so far? Okay, let me give some example of study skills or referring to a dictionary. So there is a poem like The Rainy Day by Longfellow. Now, if you say, what do you think is the central idea of the poem? We are motivating the learners to think about the context. If that context itself is different in 2 different varieties. For example, if a British professor says it was a sunny day today, we know that in a particular part of Britain, or in the United States also, if it is dark and gloomy and there is a snowfall for major part of the year, and sometimes you see the sun, the sentence, it was a sunny morning, has a different connotation. But in situation like all of us, India, Myanmar, and Thailand, where we are experiencing 40° plus 40°, I think it was a sunny morning has a different connotation, right? So literature can help us to understand different contexts, and literature can help us also to understand how these varieties function in a different way. I won't go into this. Yeah, I think this is an important point, teaching politeness markers, because literature, we are all in a non-native variety. And for enriching linguistic competence, along with the aspect of grammaticality, I think it is important that we teach the aspect of appropriateness to our students. And remember, appropriateness is a pragmatic concept. Do you teach pragmatics to your students at school level or undergraduate level, or do we only teach phonetics, grammar, vocabulary? Do you teach them how to be culturally correct? Is that a part of your curriculum, Sitisak?
Yes, Professor. We introduce and train the student about the culture of the English native speakers, as well as the way of life and do and don't in class as well. Yes.
And at which level do you do this?
The level is the lecture. Yeah, the lecture in front of the class, and then let the student practice the conversation by let them make the situation in the native or the Western culture style as well.
Okay, and that's good that you are teaching this. And have you realized or come across what does your experience say that do students need that kind of teaching? Because quite often they're not familiar with that other culture, right? So we might commit mistakes.
Yes, but first of all, we should like a lecture and give more clarification about that culture, and we should start from the simple one, Professor. Yes.
Absolutely. So, in the morning when I gave you example about Indian speakers not thanking enough. For example, there might be a particular short story which helps us to understand how the speech act of thanking is extremely important. And if that story depicts the use of thanking, we can use that story to teach politeness markers to our learners. So that is how we can combine language and literature. Yes, someone was saying something. Yes, Vipapon. Someone was trying. Yes, Mary.
Professor, I have a question to ask.
Yes.
I think I saw in the slide that thanking in India is not enough, like you said. So so what people say to thanks others?
No, see, I didn't say that people kind of don't thank. I said that we don't thank to the extent to which the word thank you is used, the frequency of it in British and American English is far higher.
Don't use too often, right?
Yeah, we don't use it often. And the reason for not using it often is, for example, in my family, my mother tongue is Marathi. As I told you, in Marathi, we don't have a word for thank you, an informal word for thank you. Is there informal word for thank you in Thai?
Oh, I see. But in Thai we say "ขอบคุณครับ," thank you.
Kapun kap. Yes, I know.
I see.
But in Marathi, there is no such word. So what happens? It is a parameter or example of linguistic transfer. That's something that I don't do in my language. I tend not to do it too often in English. So not that we don't thank, but to explain or to make you understand the situation. If I'm traveling if I go to a vegetable seller in India, after I buy all the vegetables, I might thank the vegetable seller at the end. That's it. But if a similar situation was there in Britain, we say good morning, how are you doing today? Would you please like to buy vegetables? Yes, thank you. What is the cost of vegetable? 50 rupees, thank you. Give me 1 kg, thank you. So, this extensive use of thank you, that is not what we do really. So that was my point. But that's not to say that we are rude or we are impolite. It's just that frequently we don't use it. Clear, Setisak?
Yes, Professor, I see now. Thank you.
Yes. Any other question, Mary, Vipapon? Okay. Just one sec. the slide is not moving. Just one sec. I'll share it again. I think Sitisak, this slide will also answer your question. These are the lines that come from a particular literary text. Now, Joseph says, do you mind sparing some time for us? The author says, it would be my pleasure. Joseph, would you express your views on whether English has become an obstacle in the growth of regional languages in India? The author says, the world in general thinks so, but I'm afraid I have a different point of view. Vipapon, can you quickly tell me which are the polite expressions in this dialogue?
The polite
expressions, which are they in this dialogue?
Do you mind?
Hmm.
Would you express?
Hmm. Any other?
I think, it would be my pleasure. I think
okay.
It's, yeah.
Okay. One more. There is one more polite expression in the last sentence.
In the last sentence, I am afraid.
Correct. Very good. Now, you know, if we relate this to our situations, the non-native context, not that our students are not polite, but they might say, can you spare some time for us, which is okay. But you know that do you mind is a more polite expression, right? In the last sentence, many of our students say, I'm sorry, I have a different point of view. So we can teach our students that I am afraid also means I'm sorry. And I'm afraid is a more polite way of saying I'm sorry. So this is how we can use literature if we want to provide exposure to British and American English to our learners and make them more polite. I think we have to create samples, we have to create materials, we have to become material producers. You know that between will and would, which one is more polite? Is will more polite or would more polite?
Would.
Would is more polite than will. Could is more polite than can. So, you know, instead of saying, will you express your views? It's always better to say, would you express your views? So this is how I think we can blend literature and language. The literature gives us an opportunity to provide exposure to different varieties of English. Literature provides us opportunities to see those cultural aspects in different texts. And I think we should create materials and create samples using all this different material. So the whole point of reading out that poem to you in Indian English or giving you some examples of British English and American English, the whole objective was to make you realize that teachers have to really look for the material and create the right materials so that we are able to provide exposure to global Englishes. So henceforth, you know, what you can do in your actual class is pick up a text of African English, pick up Chinua Achebe and give your students exposure to African English. Take a text written by R.K. Narayan, who is a very famous Indian author. Your students will help, your students can understand the meaning of, get exposure to Indian English. There is a novel, there are a lot of novels written by American authors. So if you pick up the right kind of short story according to the learner's age, I think they will get exposure to American English, right? So that is how we need to work effectively with literature. We will stop in the next 5-10 minutes, but I'm going to conclude with what all we have learned and what do we have to carry with us, what we would call as pedagogical implications. So I would like to conclude with the slide on pedagogical implications. And of course, we will have a question answer time if you have any questions. So to conclude, what I want to say right from session 1 in the morning, I feel that teachers must possess passive knowledge of native varieties and active knowledge of second or foreign language variety. So these varieties are not standardized at the moment, but I feel that it is important that the practicing teacher knows that I don't speak American English, I don't speak British English, but what I speak is something like Indian English or Myanmar English or whatever it is. So I think let us look within ourselves, let us introspect, and let us all understand, first of all, what variety of English do we speak. Second, I think we must make an attempt to standardize different varieties. And this is an area where all of you as researchers can actually work well, because there is a lot of scope and it is a very, very fertile domain of research where you can standardize Indian, you can contribute to standardization. So as I just told James in the morning, that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the picture of English in Thailand or in Myanmar would be different. And all of you as researchers and students of English can contribute to the process of standardization. I also feel that we must develop a positive attitude towards different varieties. Let us start teaching this to our learners. There is nothing like one variety is good than other. There is nothing like one variety is superior than other. We all have to teach our students and our kids to learn to respect all different varieties of the language. So we should come out of what is called as linguistic schizophrenia. As you know, schizophrenia is a disease. It's a psychological disease. So if I speak Indian English, I should take every pride. I should feel proud of the fact that I speak Indian English. I should not possess linguistic schizophrenia and I say that I speak American English. Certainly, I don't speak American English. So we need to develop a positive attitude. I think our notion of correctness, I gave you this example in session 2 today. I think our notion of correctness will broaden in years to come. So right now, because Indian English is not standardized, when I conduct examination for my student, I have to assess the paper only as per British English model. But if Indian English gets standardized, it expands, it allows me to expand the notion of correctness. So maybe that change will come in years to come. We must take pride in saying that we speak second language variety. As I said, we should, first of all, we should be proud of the fact that we speak English and this is how we speak it. During my research, you will be surprised when I traveled to UK and USA, I realized that many Indians had a negative attitude towards Indian English, but many native speakers of English had a very positive attitude to Indian English. So this has to change, right? If we are the language users, we have to have a positive attitude. We must try to develop what is called as the endonormative model and not always depend on the exonormative approach. You understand these words, endonormative and exonormative? Anyone?
No, I don't understand.
Okay. Does anyone know? Yeah, I will. Does anyone know the meaning of these words, endonormative and exonormative? Okay, endonormative means that the model should come from within the same country. So if Indian English is standardized and if Indian scholars develop and come up with a grammar book of Indian English or with a dictionary of Indian English, then we will have endonormative model. Exonormative, exo meaning something that comes from outside. So right now in India, it is exonormative approach because we adopt the British English variety as a teaching model. But if we have more researchers, if Indian English is standardized, if the attitude changes, then in years to come, we may have endonormative model. We ourselves will create a model for our country. Clear, Vipapon?
Yes, yes, Professor. Thank you very much.
Right. So I think the takeaway for all of us, I think because we are teachers, because we are students, because we are researchers, what I have written in terms of pedagogical implication, in terms of the previous slide, where we have to have more knowledge of these varieties, we need to standardize these varieties, we have to have a positive attitude towards them, we have to come out of linguistic schizophrenia, we have to change our evaluation and notions of correctness. We should take pride in saying that I speak Indian English or I speak Pakistani English. And finally, we must do research so that we are able to develop a model from within our own situation. Okay, any questions? Anything?
Okay, Professor.
Yeah. Yes, James.
Okay, I would like to know, okay, for example, if Indian English, okay, India is a big country, and the neighboring country of India, okay, for example, is a very small one like Singapore or Hong Kong. Okay, is it possible that your neighboring country will take Indian English and then Indian English will be taught in their schools?
Okay.
Because they have influences.
Right. Yes, I'll just stop sharing the slide and I will answer James's question. I just want to conclude by saying that enjoy exploring different varieties of English. I'll just stop sharing and I'll answer that question. All right, so James's question is that if Indian English is standardized, is it possible that the neighboring countries like Hong Kong and Singapore and other might use and adopt that model? So right now, just as in India, we are adopting the British English model. Is it possible that these other countries adopt Indian English model? James, you would be surprised to know that there are some linguists at the global level who are working right now on the notion of international English. And some of them say that not just in the neighboring countries, but Indian English will be a teaching model for many countries of the world. Of course, if it happens as an Indian, I would definitely feel happy about it. But already there is a talk about this, that because of the population, because of the expansion of the country, and the way Indian English has taken a leap, in all its probability, it is likely to happen. So people have also, therefore I asked you this question this morning, that can we have, or are we likely to have only one English, that is international English? Now for that to happen, we should have descriptions of different native varieties. Our descriptions of different non-native varieties also have to be ready. So Indian English should be described, Pakistani English should be described, African English should be described. We try to arrive at a common core of all these different varieties, and then we would be able to talk about international English. So the answer to your question is certainly yes, and the world is looking forward to it because of our openness in attitude. We have become quite open, just as, you know, there the reason was different. India is close to or has adopted British English model because of its close affinity, and in a sense because of the colonial rule and the colonial impact. But now in future, maybe after Indian English is standardized, different countries will adopt Indian English as a teaching model. Thailand may adopt Indian English as a teaching model. We don't know, but the possibility exists. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor.
Yes.
I've got a lot of ideas this afternoon.
Yes. Very good. And I hope you write, you think, you continue your reflection. The whole objective of this ELT webinar, I hope I have been successful in making you think of many different issues around the world of, around the notion of global Englishes. Actually, we don't have answers to all the questions, but we have a lot of questions, right? And only time will give us the answers. So therefore, there's a lot of potential for research as far as the concept of global Englishes is concerned. And I'm very happy that Dr. Akarapon and Dr. Kampi chose this theme for the conference. It's a theme which is very close to my heart because this has been my own PhD topic. So it's our PhD topic is like our baby, right? We love that. So it was a chance for me to reflect once again on world Englishes, think about the pedagogical implications, think about our responsibility as a teacher amidst world Englishes, and what are the pedagogical implications. All right, any other question?
Any other question, please? If we don't have no question,
I think Sitisak. Yes, Sitisak.
Yes, yes, Professor, I would like to ask you to give the suggestion or recommendation about the research on this topic, the variety of English. Yes.
Now, for you to do it, as I said, you have already chosen the topic, right, Sitisa, or you are yet to choose?
Yes, I have already choose the topic and the skill, but I would like to know more about the topic relating to the variety of English.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm happy that you are thinking about the topic after listening to the webinar. And if not a complete thesis, as I said, you may think of writing a paper on this. Now, because you are in Thailand, now see, you don't have exposure to Indian English or African English or British English or American English, right? You are in a different culture, in a different setting. Culture, in a different setting. So one possibility, I don't know. One possibility is that you can first of all start exploring how Thai English is different. What are the problems of Thai students? Something like error analysis. I think that is where you can begin. For example, you say a syntax of Thai speakers of English. You will realize that there are certain constructions. For example, I gave you example of Indian English, like he is studying music since 1995 instead of he has been studying music. Maybe in your situation with the use of prepositions, you will find that a Thai learner is using a different preposition because in Thai you use that preposition, right? So it could be very interesting. So first of all, you should start collecting data of your situation. Maybe you can write short papers and publish articles along that direction. The next step would be, if you're familiar with a branch of linguistics called corpus linguistics, there is something called International Corpus of English. You can remember this term. You have to write on the email and you have to get a license. So if you go to International Corpus of English, you understand, there are huge samples on the computer. So in International Corpus, if you click on Australian English, you're going to find recordings of educated Australians, TV shows, radio programs, a lot of data on Australian English. If you click on Indian English, you will find a lot of data on Indian English. So if you can't visit the country, you can rely on the computer and on corpus linguistics. And that data, on the basis of that data, you can start analyzing different varieties. Even that is possible. The third possibility is to distinguish a particular non-native variety from a native variety. Today, I demonstrated how Indian English is different from British or American English. You can write a full paper on American English and something like Thai English. But for that, as I've already said, in your country, it is important that more and more people use English. And that is where your responsibility, more and more people use English, and that is where your responsibility as a teacher, as a researcher, as a professor, as an academician comes in. So once English grows in Thailand, I think it will get the status of a variety. So to conclude, I hope that whenever it happens and whenever I visit Thailand, there will be more users of English than what I have observed. So that it means the status of English in Thailand would go up.
Okay, thank you very much, Kap.
Right?
Thank you.
Most welcome. Any other question?
Any other question, please? If we don't have any question,
Yeah, Mary, just one thing I'd like to say, in case you have some idea, you want to discuss something, Dr. Kampi has my email ID. It's madhuripune@yahoo.com. So now that you have a lot of ideas on global Englishes and Dr. Akarapon has joined us, sir, you will be happy to know that though they have decided on their research topic already, some of them might want to change the title a little and bring the component of global Englishes. If not changing the thesis title, they certainly now have started thinking of contributing and writing different articles for different journals on the notion of global Englishes. So I'm very happy Sitisak, James, Mary, Imon, everyone said that they want to do something with the kind of English that they observe in their own context and their own situations. So since my PhD was along the lines of global Englishes, if I could be of any help to you, you're most welcome to write to me on Madhuri Pune, MADHURIPUNE. All that is one word, madhuripune@yahoo.com. And thank you, Dr. Kampi and Dr. Akarapon, for a wonderful feast, I would say, on global Englishes. It was a journey in tourism to America, to Britain, to Canada, to Australia, to India, to Thailand, to Myanmar, and to many different countries of the world. So thank you very much for your patient listening. And I'm not saying this for the sake of formality, but the students, the audience matters a lot. And all of you have been so attentive since morning, so curious to know, very, very participative approach that you had. Thank you very much for all that. And I wish you all the very best in your journey of completing research and getting acquainted with world Englishes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Kapun Kap.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the end. Message and closing remark for the webinar. Please, the dean.
Okay, so not just really all of us very tired, but the Wi-Fi also tired because it's unstable. So sometimes we can stay on with the stable Wi-Fi, but sometimes just like this because we spend a whole day from the morning until now. All right, I really liked whatever mentioned by Professor Madhuri that we might take some time to get the answer. So you have some doubts in your mind, that's very good. All right, that if you keep reading, keep studying, and keep listening, and then you'll get the answer at last. All right, that's a very good word. From beginning until now, I still open the floor for you to change your thesis title. You can change it until your defense, your what's that? Your defense, your thesis proposal. Yeah. So now you just like this, Dr. Madhuri, they are changeable. They can change week by week the thesis title, but you can't do that. It's very common. Yes, very common indeed. Until you defense, yes, some of them change, but you can do that.
I would suggest that now they have decided and worked on that title for 6 months or 1 year. Take global Englishes for postdoctoral thesis.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. In India, in Pune, particular, you can do the postdoc there.
Sure, most welcome.
How many years for the postdoc?
Actually, for
one year, yeah?
postdoc, no, it will require minimum 2 years.
2 years,
But
yeah.
we don't have to take a guide for postdoctoral thesis,
I
because
see.
by that time, since one has completed PhD,
Hmm.
one can guide oneself. That idea
I
is
see.
there.
But at this time, I would recommend them to complete their PhD first and then
Of
postdoc.
course.
A little bit
Of
good.
course, yes.
เอาตัวนี้ให้รอดก่อน okay, that will be
Yeah.
that will be good for them. So if you want to get more answer, just wait for our conference that will be taking place on 14. At that academic conference, we also emphasize not just only the participants, the presenter, but also the keynote speaker, field speaker. So they are going to talk about more word Englishes. So you can compare whatever delivered by Professor Madhuri and our keynote speakers on that day. All right. So thank you very so much, all students, for your initiative participation in this webinar. And thank you, Dr. Kampi, who is the co-lecturer of this course. And last but not least, I would like you please join me in giving a big hand to our keynote speaker today, Professor Dr. Madhuri Gokhale from India. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I think it's a good time for us to have a group photo before leaving. And I would like to declare this webinar officially closed, and take care and stay safe from COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Kapunka. Yes.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay,
Take care.
bye-bye. Bye-bye. Take care.
Take care.
Stay safe. Stay safe. You come to
Stay safe.
India.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Professor. Thank you.
Bye. Goodbye, Kampi.
สวัส
Take
ดีค
care.
รับ
Thank you.
Savadikap.
Dean.
No, it was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, madam.
Academically, to be involved for the whole day in one topic is a great thing to happen for any teacher. So thank you for the opportunity. I hope COVID doesn't come, and all of you are most welcome to visit India.
COVID doesn't come, and all of you are most welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.